Welcome back to my Backpacking Sucks series. If you haven't watched the first installment, be sure to check that out. Just as the title suggests, this is a series all about how much different aspects of backpacking can suck, and ultimately what we can do about it. In part 2 of Backpacking Sucks, I want to talk about how much the weather can suck while backpacking.
This is through hiking. Gnarly out there.
So fun.
Even though the weather can really suck, with the right gear, mindset, and game plan, you can definitely make even the suckiest weather suck a little bit less. If you like backpacking videos and complaining, be sure to subscribe. I make new videos every Wednesday. The last complaint about backpacking weather is one that not only sucked, but actively terrified me on every single trail I've ever thru hiked. So be sure to stick around for that weather element and what I do about it. Heat sucks. For people who willingly put ourselves out in the elements as much as we do, as backpackers should have a strong dislike for weather extremes. And I get it. Nothing has ever tested me more than walking through the New Mexico desert during a heat wave on a late April afternoon between the hours of 12 and 4 p.m. I have never experienced something that sucks quite as much. When I find myself in these especially sucky situations, I try to remind myself how much tougher I am getting. Like if I just make it through this afternoon, I will be one scorching afternoon of suck tougher than I was this morning. Mindset shift alone is not the only thing that has gotten me through some of the suckiest, hottest afternoons on trail. So here are some of the other things that I have implemented throughout my thru hiking career to deal with afternoon heat. 1, a sun umbrella. Seriously, it makes it feel 10 to 15 degrees cooler and sometimes is the only shade that you'll get. 2, soak your shirt or hat or whatever clothing you're wearing in whatever water sources that you can. It will keep you much cooler, at least for a little bit. 3, just don't hike in the afternoon. Learn from my mistakes and take siestas. In some environments, that means no hiking between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. You might have to night hike because of that, but it's a lot better than melting away in the afternoon heat. Next, cold sucks. Unfortunately, most backpacking is not like April 25th. It gets too hot and it gets too cold, and you're definitely going to need more than a light sweater. If you're anything like me, or from what I've heard, women in general, we tend to run a little bit colder, then you might not deal so well with colder temperatures. But it's not something that layering and the right gear can't fix. Over the years, I've dialed in what I need to keep me warm on these 3-season trips, and more recently on winter uphilling excursions. Things that have helped me deal with the soul-sucking cold include 1, getting a warmer sleeping bag and knowing the difference between safety ratings and comfort ratings. A sleeping bag may be rated to 15 degrees, but if that's a safety rating, it simply means you won't perish from the cold at 15 degrees, but it does not mean you're gonna have a comfortable night's sleep. Personally, I carry a 15-degree sleeping bag, which is totally overkill to some, but it helps me get a lovely night's sleep in the Colorado Alpine from May to September. 2, carry a sleeping bag liner. If you don't want to drop the cash for a way warmer bag and you have a perfectly functional sleeping bag, a liner can be a great way to add a couple degrees of warmth to the bag that you already own. 3, checking the R value of your sleeping pad is also an important factor in making sure that your sleep system is warm enough. You can even add a thin foam pad under your blow-up pad to add some warmth if, again, you don't want to spend the money to upgrade for the few colder trips you're gonna take each year. 4, smart campsite selection will also go a long way. Try to avoid camping near water, and lower elevation will almost always be warmer than camping higher. A mid-layer fleece can also go a long way for keeping you warmer without having to worry about hiking in your base layers and potentially getting them wet with sweat. A mid-layer plus a rain jacket is an excellent insulation tool on cold and windy mornings. Next is the Nalgene trick. While I don't personally carry a Nalgene usually, filling one with hot water at the end of the day can be an excellent way to keep your toes toasty during really late shoulder season hikes. I could probably do a whole video on just the things I've developed dealing with the cold, so leave a comment if that's something you'd like to see. In the same realm as sucky temperatures, of course, is sucky weather. If we could schedule our backpacking trips for perfect weather windows, I'm sure we would, but unfortunately, that is not reality. Sometimes you've had PTO booked for months, flights are bought, permits are scheduled, and 2 days before you realize monsoon season has decided to rear its predictably ugly head a few weeks early. Or maybe monsoon season is really the only time you could get time off, so how do you deal? In Colorado, afternoon storms are practically synonymous with summer. If you can avoid hiking above tree line after 2 p.m., you're gonna be better off. If it hails, tree cover is also a great way to reduce the sting. I also like to pull out my Tyvek ground sheet to guard myself. In Colorado, most hailstorms don't last longer than 20 minutes, so pull out some protection and wait it out if you can. An umbrella also makes a world of difference in never-ending rainstorms. Sometimes, and in some places, hail, rain, and lightning are unpredictable and unavoidable. This is why it's important to have good rain gear that you can trust to keep you dry. All else fails, don't be afraid to set up your camp early and protect yourself from the elements. Sometimes that's just the way the sucky backpacking cookie crumbles. And remember, this is making you tougher. Packing up wet gear sucks. An inevitable byproduct of setting up camp in the rain is packing up camp wet in the morning. That shit sucks. I remember one particular day on the CDT, Josh and I attempted to hike through the rain for hours in the winds, and it just never let up. We set up camp and everything besides our sleep stuff was absolutely sopping wet. So like all of our clothes just absolutely drenched. It didn't stop pouring and hailing until just before sunset, so there was no time for the sun to dry out our gear. In the morning, we had to put on soaking wet clothes and pack up a soaking wet tent and ground sheet. But we still managed to have a pretty good day after that. If you're lucky, the sun will eventually come back out. And I can acknowledge that the AT vets are probably laughing at me right now, so if you have things to add to this list, please leave them in the comments. But here's what I do when I'm forced to pack up wet gear. If you can, try just strapping your tent to the outside of your pack so you don't have to put it in with everything else, potentially getting all of that other stuff wet, like your sleeping bag. I keep whatever stuff is dry inside my trash compactor liner that I always have in my backpack, and then anything that is wet goes outside of that until it has a chance to dry. Take a long lunch break where you have a complete yard sale to let everything dry out completely. This is a lot easier in the West where the sun comes out strong and the high elevation means drier air. You can use a bandana, buff, or pack towel to wipe off as much excess water as you can before packing everything up, and then also shake stuff out before you pack it up for the same reason. Just try and get rid of as much of that excess water as you can. Wet feet are also usually an unavoidable, sucky part of any backpacking trip, whether it's from water crossings with no good rock hop, a long day of slogging through the rain, or tromping through lots of late season snow. Having wet feet all day objectively sucks. I do find you sort of just get used to this feeling at some point, but there are a few good ways to deal with it. One, if you really hate it, just pack some extra socks so you have options. Two, this might seem counterintuitive, but don't wear waterproof shoes. The reason I say that is waterproof things take way longer to dry. So once they get soaked, they're gonna hold onto that water for much longer than something that isn't waterproof. Breathable trail runners inevitably squeeze out that extra water and dry fairly quickly in my experience. Finally, take your shoes and socks off at breaks to let your feet dry out. You don't want your toes soaking in all that wetness all day long. Something that was news to me when I started backpacking out west was that backpacking through snow is a valid concern sometimes well into July. This Midwest girl was not ready for endless fields of sun cups and sketchy traverses while climbing Mount Whitney on 4th of July weekend. Didn't know that was a thing. However, I persevered during a high snow year on the PCT in 2019 and through the San Juans in late May on the CDT in 2022. And while I still feel like I'm gonna shit myself anytime I have to cross a steep snowshoe, the whole situation sucks a little bit less now that I have these tools. First, bring micro spikes. This is one of those items that I'd rather have and not need than need and not have. They're heavy for sure, but relative to the weight off my shoulders I feel when I actually grip into ice rather than sliding around, feeling like I'm gonna fall off the side of a mountain, weightless. Two, bring an ice axe. Another crucial tool that is important to know how to use that can literally save your life. Remember that an ice axe is no good to you strapped to the outside of your pack. It's best to actually take it out and use it on steep snow traverses, and make sure you know how to self-arrest should the need arise. You can practice on lower angle slopes or low consequence terrain. Three, you can always walk around the snow. Now that my route finding skills have improved, I'm more confident in going off trail to avoid the snow altogether. If it makes sense, you can walk around steep snowshoots or find another way to your destination without risking a fatal glissade. Four, glissading. While you never want to glissade accidentally, glissading down a long slope can be an excellent reward for slogging through snow all day. My main glissading tips include one, using something, anything to protect your butt. Two, do not let yourself pick up too much speed as that can get dangerous very quickly. Sometimes this means going painfully slow. Three, wait for the afternoon when the snow is soft. You don't want to try and slide down an icy chute first thing in the morning. It's going to make the other tips very hard to follow. Another thing you want to do when there's a significant amount of snow on the trail is start early. Going through snow earlier in the day will prevent you from post-holing all afternoon and wasting a ton of energy. Finally, bring bread bags or extra socks for wet feet. One thing about hiking through the snow all day is that your feet are inevitably going to get wet. You know this is gonna happen. Try putting bread bags in between your socks and your shoes to keep your socks from getting wet, or just bring an extra pair of socks to change into to make sure you have dry feet every night. Well, that's about all the complaining about weather that I have in me, and the sun really is mocking me today. I typically use natural lighting, and if you can tell the video has wonky lighting throughout, it's because probably I was complaining the whole time, and that's just karma. In the next video, I'll talk about all the different aches and pains that come with backpacking and how much those suck. If you'd like to vent about backpacking, please feel free to do so in the comments or ask any questions that you may have. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Here we go again.